7 bone-chilling true hidden camera horror stories that haunt you forever. It was the kind of night that made shadows stretch and breathe, where every creak of the old house echoed like a whisper of dread. The flickering light from a single bulb dimly illuminated the small living room, the soft patter of rain outside a counterpoint to the growing unease. The camera was set up in the corner, an unblinking eye that captured every moment, every secret lurking just out of view. What lay hidden in the shadows of this ordinary space was about to be revealed, tales that would chill you to your core. In a small town, a couple decided to record their anniversary celebration. They marveled at how everything seemed perfect until the playback revealed something unexplainable. As they clinked glasses, an eerie figure loomed just outside the kitchen window, its hollow eyes watching with a predatory gaze. When shown to friends later, everyone's laughter died, replaced by silence, a pact of fear exchanged in shared looks. What was that figure? Was it just a trick of light, or something darker, something that hungered for their happiness? Next, a young woman set up her hidden camera in her bedroom, hoping to catch her cat's antics during the day. What she found on the footage made her blood run cold. Among the playful meows and pounces, there was a dark shape crouched at the foot of her bed, a clear outline against the soft glow of her fairy lights. The homeowners around her had heard stories of odd happenings in the neighborhood, strange sounds in the night, but she never believed until she saw it, a shadow shifting as if alive, right in her sanctuary. As the night wore on, legends of the local woods unfolded, disappearances and sadness echoed through the townsfolk's conversations. Months earlier, a group of teens had set up a camera at the entrance of the forest. Their mission? To explore the haunted tales that had chased generations. But the existence of those tales became terrifyingly real when they unearthed an inexplicable assortment of oddities, twisted trees that seemed to whisper, and symbols carved into bark, leading to a hidden clearing where the air grew thick with sorrow. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then there was the family who installed cameras while on vacation, thinking it's safe to leave their home in the hands of technology. However, upon returning, they found footage showing their front door swinging open and closed as if and then someone walked in. A chilling unease settled inside them as they recognized the silhouette as someone they had known, a family friend with a smirk frozen on his face as he rifled through their belongings. How far had he been willing to cross the line? Was the friendship just a facade? As whispers of the mystery deepened, a lone detective dug into a string of videos uploaded by locals. Each piece he reviewed left him with a tight chest, more questions than answers roiling in his mind. The camera told stories of despair, of rage, and of screams that never made it out of the darkness. Each chilling image replayed in his mind, turning what he thought was the innocent voyeurism of life into something grotesque. But the most shocking story of all was yet to come. A hidden camera lurked at the foot of a worn staircase in an old bed and breakfast that had seen better days, a place where ghostly stories haunted those brave enough to stay the night. Guests only saw the charming facade, unaware of a malevolent presence lying in wait. It wasn't until morning when screams rang out, a couple found lifeless on the floor, their last moments caught on tape. What happened that night? As the detective prepared to uncover the layers of horror wrapped tight around this tragic mystery, he couldn't shake the sense that they weren't alone in their search. Something was watching and waiting. The detective rubbed his temples, the shadows in the room growing darker as if they had a mind of their own. The faint glimmering of the flickering bulb overhead couldn't dispel the chilling atmosphere weighing heavily on him. He was sure something was stalking each step he took, even while confined to the safety of his cluttered desk. As he leaned forward, the soft glow of the monitor illuminated his expression, a mix of determination and trepidation. Each clip he viewed from that ill-fated night took him deeper into the unraveling horror. There were jagged breaths, shattering glass, and then the silence. Footage of the couple dancing, the lightness in their laughter now a ghostly echo. But it was the last few frames that haunted him most. A dark figure, cloaked and indistinct but with eyes that burned like coals, stepped from behind the door, lingering for but a heartbeat before fading back into the gloom. His heart raced with each click, the mouse feeling like an extension of his anxiety. The details weighed heavily, like anchors refusing to let go. He caught himself staring at the still images, the dank stairs that led up to rooms where joy once echoed but now held hushed secrets. What truly happened in that bed and breakfast? The question burned, igniting fears that clung to him. Determined to seek justice where love once flourished, he decided to dig deeper into the circumstances surrounding the BB. That morning, he set out to visit the small town that had been cloaked in whispers of terror. The rain drizzled on and off, pinning the townsfolk inside their homes, each window a barrier to the storm brewing within. He arrived at the BB, the place flaunting its quaint charm with an unsettling glee, painted doors standing wide open, as though beckoning him inside. As he crossed the threshold, a chill raced up his spine. The air was thick, laden with unspoken dread. It felt alive, each creak of the floor like a warning. "Beautiful, isn't it?" A voice broke through the silence like thunder rolling across a calm landscape. The detective turned to see a woman standing with a warm smile, an unsettling glint in her eye. She wore an apron, flour dusting her cheeks like a mask to hide some secret sins. "I'm the caretaker here. Sorry, we weren't expecting visitors today. I need to ask about the couple," he started, but her laugh, light and airy, rang through the hall as if mocking him. "Couples come and go. So many whispers. You folks always think there's something haunting, but it's life, dear, isn't it? Life plays tricks. Are you here for the thrill?" Her words twisted the air tighter, wrapping around him as he fought to keep his breathing steady. Each question seemed to bounce off her like bullets against armor. She stepped closer, the warm aroma of baked goods fading into something cloyingly sweet, almost suffocating. "It's not just the stories, is it?" she whispered, a conspiratorial look flashing across her face. "It's the souls, those who linger, who long for the warmth they lost." Glimmers of doubt sparked in his mind. What did she know? The detective's gut twisted as he glanced quickly at the camera hidden deftly in the corner. The very thought of more hidden eyes made the hairs on his neck bristle. Suddenly, a loud crash upstairs shattered the tense air, sending a shockwave through him. The woman's expression shifted to one of feigned concern, but he saw the flicker of something sinister beneath. With heart pounding, he hurried towards the staircase, every step feeling like an echo from the unearthly. But as he reached the bottom, the flickering bulb began to hum, dimming as the shadows molded around him, swallowing hope in icy grasp. What awaited him on that staircase? Was it the answers he sought or something worse lurking in the dark? He inhaled deeply, willing himself to step beyond the threshold and into the void. But the moment he began to ascend, a whisper danced through the air, brushing against his ear, promising a revelation that would shake him to his core. "Turn back, it's not what you think." Would he discover the truth, or would he fall victim to whatever entity had laid claim to this haunted place? The next step felt heavy, like a shackle pulling him deeper into despair. The detective swallowed hard, battling against the unseen grip tightening around his chest. Each creak of the stairs beneath his weight echoed loudly, stretching the silence around him into a taut string ready to snap. The glow from the flickering bulb above barely illuminated the path ahead, casting long, ghostly shadows that danced along the walls. He reached the top, where the hallway stretched out before him like some sinister maze. Doors stood half ajar, their edges whispering secrets of a world long lost. A chill swept over him, brushing against his skin like icy fingers. It was far too quiet, a silence pregnant with the weight of lurking eyes and unclaimed souls. The detective steeled himself, moving toward the door from which he thought the crash had emanated, but with each step, something within him pricked with urgency to hold back. As he approached the door, a sense of dread boiled within him. The room's aura was a tangible force, and before he could fully grasp his surroundings, he pushed the door open. It swung wide, revealing a bedroom, the bed perfectly made, yet the air felt suffocatingly thick. The scent of decay lingered, mingling with the sweet aroma that had once promised comfort. Dust motes hung in the air like trapped butterflies, reminding him that this space hadn't felt human warmth in ages. A single window laid ajar, curtains fluttering weakly against the chilly breeze, casting fleeting shadows that seemed to shift and shudder beyond recognition. But it wasn't the decor that halted him in his tracks, it was what lay on the floor. A small frame of shattered glass crunched underfoot, a photograph staring up at him from the grime. The couple from earlier, frozen in a moment of laughter, a stark contrast to the gathering dread that surrounded him. He bent closer, feeling the weight of familiarity. But something slithered in the corner of his eye, a dark movement that yanked his gaze away from the photo. The door creaked ominously as it swung slowly shut behind him. Panic surged through him. He was trapped. As he backed toward the door, his heart sank. A shadow pooled in the corner, twisting and contorting until it formed a figure, cloaked in darkness, with coal-like eyes that pierced straight into his soul. He felt the air thicken, stifling his breath as the figure curled its lips into a chilling smile, a reflection of malevolent glee. "Are you looking for answers?" It hissed, the voice a tortured echo that wrapped around him like a serpent. "The truth is here, just waiting to be uncovered. But beware, not all who seek are prepared for what they find." The detective stumbled, his back hitting the door as cold sweat trickled down his spine. Desperate, he lunged for the doorknob. But it wouldn't budge. Mere moments passed, frozen in suspense as the figure stepped closer, gliding, defying all reason. The shadows stretched, elongating towards him like grasping hands, urging him into their icy embrace. "Stay," it whispered, the voice dripping with temptation and despair. "You have so much to learn about them, about yourself." Squeezing his eyes shut, he clutched the framing of the door, half convinced this nightmare would end when he opened them. When he finally dared to look again, the figure was gone, leaving only a swirling mist in its place. For a moment, silence reigned supreme, but it was short-lived. A sound, a soft yet resonant cry, pulled at him, echoing through the brief return of stillness. It wasn't just any cry, it was a plea, drowning in fear. Suddenly, without warning, the light overhead flickered violently, illuminating a new figure lying on the floor, shrouded in confusion and horror. "Help me," it whispered, its voice a haunting melody of anguish. With a pounding heart, he rushed forward, ready to break the trance that gripped the room. But who was this new apparition? And could he really help, or was he already too far gone, entangled in the web of haunting despair? The detective knelt beside the figure, his heart racing as he grasped the reality of what lay before him. The dim light cast a ghostly sheen over the pale face, revealing features twisted in an eternal expression of distress. It was a woman, her eyes wide with desperation, flickering with a hint of recognition as they met his. "Please, they can't," she gasped, clutching her throat as if an unseen hand were squeezing the life from her. "You have to stop them." He could barely breathe, the weight of her words pressing against his chest. Who's coming?" he managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper, overshadowed by the lingering dread of the shadow that had haunted him moments before. "The shadows," she murmured, her gaze darting around like a cornered animal. "They feed on fear, you mustn't let them in." He felt a chill sweep through the room, a wave of malevolence that rattled the remnants of his courage. Just as he opened his mouth to ask for more, her body convulsed, and she began to fade, as if she were unwinding into the very air that had once haunted this space. "No! Don't go!" he shouted, reaching out. His fingers grazed the air where she had been, but she was already dissipating like smoke in the wind. "Find the mirror," she gasped, the words ghosting across the space. "It reveals everything," and then, she was gone, leaving him in a room steeped in rising tension. Pushing back the fear that threatened to envelop him, he looked around frantically. A mirror. He needed a mirror. He whirled around, scanning the room as a sense of urgency ignited in him. The window, where the curtains danced eerily, the bed, with its immovable stillness, and then, the wall, an old, cracked mirror hung there, dust-covered and tainted with age. Taking tentative steps toward it, he could already sense the weight of something dark lying just beyond its reflective surface. The flickering light shifted, casting a distortion upon the glass that seemed to pulse with life. As he drew closer, trepidation gnawed at him. Would he see her, or something far worse? His reflection fractured in the crazed lines of the glass, but amid the chaos, he felt an undeniable pull. Raising a trembling hand, he reached out toward the mirror. The moment his fingers made contact, a frigid jolt shot through him, shocking his senses. Suddenly, an image crystallized within the glass, an entire scene unfolding behind him. A figure, the same dark one, was creeping up from the shadowed corners of the room. The figure's eyes glowed, hungry and gleeful, staring right at him through the mirror, as if it thrived on his fear. He turned, dread curling in his belly. But all he saw behind him was the room, silent and still. When he turned back to the mirror, the figure was gone. Where the figure had been wasn't just emptiness, it was as if the darkness had spilled into the room itself. Fear saturated the air as the surrounding shadows began to shift and swirl, moving independently, threatening to consume him. Not again, he thought, his pulse quickening. The air grew heavier, thick with an all-consuming dread as whispers slithered through the room, taunting him with echoes of his own anxieties, a cacophony of past failures and regrets infecting the silence. "Help me," the voices chanted, repeatedly layering over one another, drowning him in despair. This wasn't just about finding answers, it was about facing truths he'd buried deep within himself. He pressed his palms against the cold surface of the mirror, desperate to find that woman, desperate to understand her plea. Then it hit him like a punch to the gut. "Where did you go?" he yelled, eyes wild as he searched every inch of the glass, begging for her return, wanting to grasp an opportunity to change the course of this nightmare, but the only reply was the drawn-out echo of his own voice suffocating in the darkness. He closed his eyes tight, trying to shut out the chaos, but finding himself slipping further into the abyss. And then, through the overwhelming noise, came the soft voice again, piercing through the fog of dread. "Look harder," with a blunt force of determination. He opened his eyes wide, couldn't afford to falter now. There had to be a way. There always was, even in the clutches of despair. But another flicker from the bulb caught his eye, revealing something hidden in the shadows just beyond the mirror, a twisted shape, lurking, waiting to strike. Caught at the edge of a cliff, the detective's resolve wavered, breathing fast with panic and dread. The truth was inching closer, and yet, something deeply sinister was unraveling just beyond the shadows. What waited for him in that dark space? And could the truth save him, or would it bind him further into the horrors of this house? He took a step back from the mirror, his breath quickening as the shadows writhed like living entities, clawing at his sanity. A bone-deep chill shuddered through him, a whispered promise of secrets long buried. The darkness felt thicker now, almost tangible, wrapping around him. "Get a grip," he muttered, forcing himself to focus. If the woman's words were true, the key lay within this haunted reflection. The truth might very well be what saved him. He had to keep going. With a surge of defiance, he advanced once more toward the mirror, heart hammering in his chest. He leaned in close, nearly pressing his forehead against the cool glass. As he concentrated, the noise around him faded, only the flutter of faint whispers remained, echoing around the edges of consciousness, urging him, pushing him. Look harder." The urge to surrender was almost overwhelming. He felt the shadows knot in his stomach, but he forced his gaze deeper into the mirror's depths. The glass rippled, as if responding to his will, revealing fleeting images: a frantic woman running through a deserted street, a child calling for help, and then, a glimmer of a fleeting figure hovering in an alleyway. The figure stopped, and he recognized her. The woman he just lost was here again, her eyes wide, pleading, but now there was something almost frantic in her expression. "Stop him!" Her voice shattered through the glass, resonating in his mind. "He has the key. You must." Suddenly, the reflection distorted, contorting as a dark silhouette emerged, expanding like a malevolent shadow spilling forth from the deepest corners of the room. The entity stretched its hands, sharp like knives, twisting toward him through the mirror. He recoiled, but a magnetic force pulled him closer, horror racing down his spine that he shouted, "What do you want?" The question echoed, swallowed by the growing intensity around him. The entity stilled, and in that moment, its face took shape, grotesque, sorrowful yet infused with an unsettling glee. It was the woman's reflection, but twisted, distorted, her features contorted into a mask of suffering. "Choose," it whispered, the voices blending into a low hum that reverberated through his very bones. "Choose to confront or to flee. The shadows rise with your fear." The terror threatened to consume him. Every instinct screamed to run, but deep within him, a flame flickered, an ember of determination. He couldn't succumb. He wouldn't abandon the truth. "Reveal yourself," he shouted, throwing his fist against the glass, sending shivers through its surface. The room rumbled, and the whispers shrieked in response, as if the very foundation of this nightmare shook at his defiance. The air turned electric, charged with tension as his reflection blurred, and then, piercing through the chaos, an image crystallized, a hidden door behind him, barely visible, leading into another realm of shadows. Was that where the answers lay? Before he could grasp this new revelation, the shadows roared, whipping around him like a tempest. Dark hands clawed at his body, dragging him back toward the abyss, toward the encroaching darkness. "No!" he screamed, pushing against the invisible tide. "I want to go back." Each heartbeat echoed in the silence. The detective focused hard and shouted once more, "Show me the truth." A blinding flash of light surged from the mirror, dazzling and chaotic, throwing him off balance. For the briefest moment, the weight of the shadows lifted, and clarity rushed in. He was teetering on the brink of revelation, but would it be wisdom or madness that awaited his discovery? Then, just as the shadows shrank back from him, a booming voice resounded like thunder, "It's your choice." Detective Time froze as he stared into the mirror, the reflection still swirling, but now rippling with possibilities. He could sense the shift in the air. The darkness began to pull away, as if holding its breath, waiting for his decision. Would he confront the terror of his past? Or would he flee into the darkness, allowing the shadows to triumph once more? The moment hung heavy, thick with both promise and peril, and in that pregnant silence, he knew the next step would change everything. What awaited him beyond that hidden door? And would he dare to take the plunge, or would he let the shadows keep their secrets? The oppressive silence shattered as the blinding light dimmed, leaving only a lingering uncertainty buzzing in the air. The dark silhouette hovered at the edge of his vision, its presence both menacing and alluring. It beckoned him to take that fateful step, to face whatever lay beyond the hidden door. His heart pounded like a war drum, each beat a reminder of the weight of his decision. "This is it," he whispered under his breath, feeling the urge to rethink everything. But the image of the woman's pleading face flickered in his mind, urging him onward. "I can't turn away," he thought, steeling himself as he reached for the door. As he turned the cold handle, an unforeseen surge of coldness washed over him, penetrating deep into his bones. He stepped through the door, the shadows swirling around his feet like ravenous specters yearning for his retreat. The place beyond was an eerie reflection of his own world, a twisted version where time seemed suspended and horrors lay tucked in every corner. Dim light flickered, revealing grotesque silhouettes along the walls, shadows of a past life he thought he had buried long ago. Each step he took echoed, resonating like the toll of a funeral bell. An aggressive wind howled, carrying the echoes of despair that clawed at the edges of his sanity. Suddenly, he caught sight of fragments of himself scattered throughout the room, moments he had lived, choices he had made. A younger version of himself stood in a corner, crying, surrounded by shadows of regret. An apparition hovered, whispering the bitter truth of decisions unmade and paths not taken. "You thought you could escape, didn't you?" it hissed, voice slithering through the air like smoke. "Shut up!" he shouted, rage and sorrow intermingling as he stepped forward, fists clenched. "I know my choices. But it's not too late." The room darkened, shadows creeping closer as if eager to swallow him whole. The air thickened, pressing down on him like an anchor. He remembered the woman's warning: the darkness thrived on fear. He couldn't let it consume him now. "Show me the truth," he cried, feeling that flame of determination flicker back into a blaze. As if responding to his call, the shadows coalesced in front of him, forming an image: an old, rusty key hanging from a battered hook near the ceiling far across the chamber. He squinted, desperation heightening his senses. That key held the answer, or so he hoped. The key to stop all this, he murmured, ready to fight through the dread engulfing him. He raced toward it, but the shadows lunged. Dark tendrils grasped at him, dragging him backward. No! His legs felt leaden, but his will was iron. He fought with every ounce of strength, pushing against the tide of despair. Not again. With one final surge, he grabbed the key. The moment his fingers closed around the cold metal, a violent wave of energy surged through him, throwing the shadows back. The room convulsed, shadows contorting and screeching as if in agony. He stumbled, clutching the key tightly, and glanced back toward the mirror he had just passed through. The reflection pulsed violently, the dark silhouette now a seething mass, furious over being denied. The air thickened once more, but amidst the chaos, a voice broke through the discord, piercing with clarity. "You must make your choice, detective. Use it or lose yourself entirely to the darkness." His breath quickened, the gravity of his decision settling over him like a heavy cloak. If he used the key, would it truly unlock a way out or unleash further horrors? With that question lingering, the room filled with agonizing cries, shadows swarming back to reclaim what they lost. He could feel their anger pounding against his very soul. What lay beyond this moment of choice? Would he fight through this darkness once more, or let the shadows pull him down, ultimately becoming their prisoner? The moment of reckoning was fast approaching, and his every instinct screamed for him to make a decision. And all the while, the echoes of the past beckoned, reminding him that once the door closed behind him, there might be no way back. The key felt heavy in his palm, radiating with a low vibration that seemed to match the frantic pounding of his heart. All around him, the shadows howled, their whispering voices clawing at his sanity, sowing seeds of doubt. He could feel their tendrils brushing against his skin, icy and clammy, insisting he succumb to their dark embrace. He staggered backward, the reality of his choices pressing down on him like an iron weight. He had to decide. The weight of the key contrasted sharply with the grip of dread that threatened to pull him back into the abyss. What if using it makes things worse? A voice in his head urged, the echo of regret intertwined with the rising tide of hopelessness. But then, another memory flickered to life, a moment that jolted through him like a lightning bolt. It was her smile, bright and full of life, like sunshine piercing through the clouds. "You can't let them win," she had said. "Fight for the light, don't fall for the shadow." Determined, he faced the swirling mass of darkness. "I won't lose myself," he declared, his voice steady, renewed. He stepped forward, feeling a surge of defiance. The shadows recoiled, writhing like snakes threatened by the light. He raised the key high above his head, a beacon of his resolve. "The time for hiding is over," he shouted, slamming the key against the frozen air. At that moment, a brilliant white light erupted from the key, illuminating the room in a blinding flash. The light pierced through the gloom, scattering the darkness like dust in the wind. But just as fast as it appeared, the shadows regrouped, coiling tighter around him, their howls transforming into screams of rage and anguish. "You think you can escape?" one shrieked, a visceral sound that echoed with centuries of despair. "You can't take away our power." The energy from the key pulsed in his hand, feeling alive. He closed his eyes, focusing on the power surging through him. "No!" he shouted defiantly, thrusting the key toward the contorted figures. "I will not be your pawn." The ground shook beneath him as he felt an explosion of force ripple through the room. Each phantom face twisted in torment, their features morphing fearfully as the light expanded, consuming the shadows and their cries. The key suddenly burned hot against his skin, forcing him to drop it onto the cold floor. It clanged loudly, bouncing away, but the light didn't wane. It enveloped him, transforming the grotesque space into a kaleidoscope of color. Past and present swirled together like a storm, memories merging in a chaotic whirlwind of emotion that he gasped, caught between memories of joy and pain, love and betrayal. Each moment pulled at him until he was dizzy with their intensity. But just as the deepest agony threatened to drag him under, a soft voice broke through. "Remember who you are." It was hers again, calm and soothing. In that moment of clarity, he reached out and snatched the key from the floor, feeling its warmth slide back into his palm. "I am more than this," he shouted, reclaiming his strength. The shadows writhed, screeching as the light intensified, lashing out against the dark entities that had held sway for far too long. Was it enough? Hands shaking, breath rapid, he pushed forward, ready to unleash the key's full potential, but just as he prepared to act, everything froze. The room darkened once more, the light flickering uncertainly. "You think you've won?" barked the voice of the shadows, deep and mocking. "This is only the beginning." His heart sank as the shadows withdrew momentarily. He felt their eyes on him, a twisted force simmering just beyond the veil of reality, preparing for their final strike. He dared not take a breath, aware that his last measure of hope hung by a delicate thread. What would happen if he unleashed the key's true power? Would he free himself or plunge deeper into the darkness? With the shadows threatening to close in again, he steadied himself, caught between courage and fear, knowing the final battle loomed ahead. Would he embrace the light and trust in his strength, or be consumed by the remnants of doubt? The ominous silence before the storm settled in, palpable and suffocating as he prepared to face the unknown. The answer rested within the key, but was he ready to unlock the door of fate? The shadows pulsed, a ravenous tide seething just beyond the flickering light. He could sense their hunger, malevolent and insatiable, as they clawed for his soul. The air thickened, clinging to him like a wet blanket, stifling and terrifying. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee into the safety of the light. But he couldn't. Not now. Clenching the key tight, he felt its heat burn through his grip, an anchor amidst the chaos. The dread folded into a singular question, sharp and insistent. What did he truly see on the other side of the door? "I'll take my chances," he bellowed, struggling against the gravity of despair that sought to pull him back. With purpose, he thrust the key forward, aiming not just at the shadows, but at the very essence of his fear. Time seemed to slow as he twisted and turned the key in midair. The world blurred around him, the colors of the light mingling with the shadows, creating a bizarre tapestry of reality. Suddenly, a sharp, pulsing sound echoed, reverberating through the room, each beat pounding along with his heart. Then came a deafening silence. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned. This was his chance. The key. It glowed brighter, reflecting echoes of every choice he had made, the wrong paths, the lost moments, and the memories that thrummed with lost love. He couldn't let them drown him any longer. "Now!" he shouted, sealing his resolve. He slammed the key into an invisible lock at his feet. The impact resonated like thunder, crackling energy surging around him. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the ground trembled violently. A fissure opened, a crack in both the floor and reality itself, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The cacophony of the shadows' wails crescendoed, spirals of darkness attempting to drag him in. It felt like the screams of 1,000 souls in torment. "Face your nightmares," a voice bellowed from within the void. It was the voice of the darkness itself. "You can't escape what you are." Staring into the swirling abyss, he saw twisted versions of himself. Each shaft of terror flickered, revealing the life he had avoided, the failures that haunted him, and the pain of choices unmade. He staggered back, gripping the key, a lifeline in this storm of sorrow. "Enough!" he roared, a fierce strength igniting within him. He pressed forward again, determination pushing him past fear. I choose to create, not destroy. He swung the key around, channeling everything, every moment, every breath, every ounce of love he had ever felt. The light exploded from him, intertwining with the key, cascading into a radiant shield against darkness. Stop. Don't. The voices screeched, a mix of confusion and anger blending into their sinister chorus. They writhed and recoiled, but the light grew brighter, engulfing everything in its brilliance, and then silence. When the light faded, he found himself standing alone in the stillness. The shadows had vanished, leaving only the echoes of their malice behind. The air felt lighter, almost inviting. He took a deep breath, relief flooding through him. But then he glanced around. The room looked different, eerily familiar but distorted, like a half-remembered dream. Walls shimmered, colors shifting subtly as if mocking reality. Something was still waiting, lurking beneath the surface. With growing unease, he could feel the ground pulsing under his feet, echoing the same heartbeat he had felt before. Panic jolted through him. What did I do? His hands trembled. He spun, searching for an escape, but the walls twisted, closing in with a mind of their own, draping him in an unsettling warmth. It can't be over, he muttered, dread pooling in his stomach. Just as he thought he was free, a whisper brushed against his neck. You think the light has won? It was a familiar voice. One he didn't want to hear. A chilling realization struck deep within him. The voices of the shadows lingered, still watching, biding their time. The true darkness had only been set aside. He faced the void again, knowing it was not finished with him. No. This was just the beginning of a new nightmare. And as the creeping shadow gathered once more, he felt a cold grip encompass his heart. The darkness pressed in closer, coiling like a serpent around him, wrapping tightly around his throat. Each breath hitched, the air thick with an oppressive weight. He could feel something shifting just beyond the veil of reality. The space between fear and reason began to warp. That whisper returned, chilling him to the bone. You're never alone, it taunted, winding into his thoughts like smoke. The shadows twisted and danced, silhouetting memories that were better left forgotten. Faces drifted before him, distorted fragments of a life he tried to escape. Friends lost, loves abandoned, all the pieces that made him whole. What do you want from me? He shouted into the void, desperate to break the spell that seemed to hold him captive. A laugh, cold and hollow, echoed around him. What do we want? We want you to remember. To feel what we feel. The walls trembled, vibrating with the darkness. Delight, growing louder with each beat of his heart. Sweat dripped down his brow as he struggled to keep his footing. The ground began to crack again, rupturing beneath him like a rotten floorboard underfoot. Panic surged, a tide of fear that threatened to drown him. With every ounce of strength, he pushed through, rallying against the encroaching shadows. No. I choose my own path. The key still lay firm in his grip, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. With thrumming determination, he held it aloft. You are nothing more than echoes. I am the voice that drowns you out. Flames of light burst from the key, cascading against the shadows that swirled greedily around him. The shadows screeched, warping in rhythmic panic. You think you're special? Just another soul trapped by your choices. The realization struck him like lightning. This wasn't just a battle against dark entities, this was a struggle against his own psyche. The wrong turns he had taken, the moments he wished to forget, were all manifesting in front of him, threatening to consume him whole. I'm not afraid of you anymore. He yelled, the light carving a path through the darkness with a raw intensity. He thrust the key forward again, and it ignited with a blinding glow, swirling through the shadows like a storm breaking over a landscape. Face it. He intoned, stronger than before. I will create my destiny. As the light broke forth, the shadows quivered in terror, colliding together, their forms diminishing under the intensity of his determination. But just as victory felt within reach, a force lashed out, slamming into him with an icy grasp. Are you really ready to let go? whispered the familiar voice, hollow and seductive. What lies behind the door is nothing compared to what you are leaving behind. Images flashed in front of him: his childhood home, laughter ringing in familiar halls, the warmth of embraces long lost. Memories that felt like fire and ice all at once, carving deeper into his heart than any shadow could. "Stop!" he roared, clutching the key tighter, feeling its warmth seeping into his skin. "I will not let you win." The darkness erupted around him, rising and swelling like a tidal wave. He felt himself being pulled in different directions, the gravity of the past demanding his return. Shadows clawed at him, worming through the cracks of his resolve, whispering sweet promises of safety and familiarity, but the light within him surged, growing stronger against the darkness that sought to consume him. "I am more than my memories," he cried, pressing forward with renewed vigor as light blazed a path through the suffocating shadows. Just then, a rumble pierced through the cacophony. A deep, throaty roar shook the very ground beneath him. The shadows faltered, shrinking back as fissures in space opened wider, threatening to consume everything. "What have you done?" The laughter turned hysterical, raw with panic. As the fissures quaked, his heart raced. Could he really seal this? Could he truly harness the path before him? The final push was here, yet what lay behind the door? Would he face despair or a new beginning? The shadows recoiled again, the crack consuming everything in its wake, and he stood at the edge, ready to step forward, but the moment hung suspended. A heartbeat echoed, and he realized his choice had only just begun. As he took a step into the swirling void, he felt uncertainty clawing at him once more. What if the real nightmare awaited him on the other side? The void recoiled as he stood at the precipice, the swirling shadows writhing like snakes eager to strike. The echoes of despair called to him, a haunting symphony melding into a single, agonizing note. Yet deep inside, a flicker of hope ignited. "I won't let fear decide my fate," he promised, voice steady as determination coursed through his veins. The memories of warmth, laughter, and the woman's pleading gaze filled his heart, which urged him to leap into the unknown. With one resolute step, he dove into the chaos. Light exploded around him, illuminating twisted phantoms, and for a moment, the shadows reared back in shock. He felt the thrum of power pulsing through his veins, merging with the essence of the key, a shimmering beacon against the encroaching dark. "You're nothing without your pain," a familiar voice taunted, rising from the depths, but he pressed forward, brushing the specter aside. "I am more than my pain," he roared, each word slicing through the darkness with fierce conviction. The swirling void sparkled with 1,000 reflections, each a flash of memory or a fragment of regret. Each image tugged at him, demanding he retreat into the comfort of what once was, but he embraced the light with every step through this dimensional storm. "Face your truths," a voice whispered fiercely, both mocking and uplifting. "You think you can escape the weight of your life?" His breath came fast, heart racing, but a fire ignited. "I won't run anymore," he declared. "This ends tonight." The key surged in his palm, a living entity of light and warmth. As vibrant energy flared with each beat of his heart, he grasped it tightly, feeling its connection deepen like roots binding him to the earth. He thrust the key forward into the swirling void, empowered by the courage lacing his every thought. "I choose to embrace my shadows, to integrate them into my being." The shadows wailed and twisted like trapped animals, thrashing against the onslaught of his newfound light. "You can't. You have to forget," they screamed, echoing a cacophony of his self-doubt. But in that weightless moment, clarity dawned like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkened sky. He realized, the darkness was a part of him. Each regret, each loss shaped who he was, a tapestry woven from threads of both joy and pain. That he pressed onward, sensing the key igniting the air around him, ablaze with love and sorrow, each memory rich and deep. "I absorb these moments. I own them," he shouted against the shadows, now fading around the edges. In the heart of the despair, he glimpsed the light, the final truth that pulsed within him. It was a time of rebirth waiting just beyond the threshold. Drawing in a ragged breath, he stepped through the luminous portal breaking in the fabric of this forsaken night. When he emerged, the suffocating dread lifted like fog under a rising sun. He found himself in a serene space, a vast field of wildflowers dancing in the gentle breeze. The air was sweet and fragrant, nourishing and filled with possibility. The sky, painted with hues unimaginable, brightened from the darkness that had once threatened to consume him. That he was free, but as he began to explore this tranquil world, memory lingered, and he couldn't shake the thought of the shadows still roaming in the fringes of existence. While he might have conquered them in this realm, he knew that they lived on in others. The journeys of countless souls weighed heavy, each one battling their own shadows. Isolated in fear, his heart jumped with purpose, realizing his mission was far from over. This world, radiant and healing, held the potential to guide others toward the light. With resolve solidified, he took a deep breath, feeling light fill his being. "I won't forget what I've endured," he pledged to the wide-open sky. "I'll guide those who are lost, those trapped in darkness, just like I was." As he walked forward, the ground felt solid beneath his feet, and each step marked a promise to face both the light and shadow within. The true power lay in acceptance, in transforming pain into strength. And somewhere, deep inside, the woman's voice echoed back to him, filled with warmth and hope. "You can find peace. You just need to remember." Resolved to live out this mission, he ventured into the vastness, determined to share his light with the world. Now, as you've reached this thrilling conclusion, I'm counting on you. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these tales alive. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending, and finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the light together.